Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Screaming Into the Void, my ripoff of Brittany Broski's Broski Report, where I just record episodes of me talking about whatever the fuck I want to talk about, and probably stuttering along the way because I have a speech issue. I constantly stutter and forget my words. So basically this podcast is going to be me talking about whatever the fuck I want to talk about this week or whenever I upload episodes, just talking about random subjects, because throughout my life people have always told me that I should start a podcast because I talk so much and I talk about so much random stuff to people, and like I'll be talking to my parents about something and they'll be like, "Oh my god, can you shut the fuck up?" Because like I am a talking machine. I'm just a talker. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Lilith. I am a gender fluid, trans femme, gay person. And I talk about whatever. Okay, let's get into the first topic of this video. By the way, I'm recording this on my Voice Memos app with my phone microphone, so you might hear background noise, and probably my dog because she's laying on my bed. Anyway, what's today's episode going to be about? Cabaret, the musical Cabaret. I will be talking about all my thoughts of Cabaret, because what better to start this, series than something I'm constantly talking about already, which is musical theater and cabaret. And this series is also going to be kind of just like my thoughts as they come in, so I will most likely jump off topic. This is very unorganized, and this is just going to be you guys listening to whatever the fuck I want to talk about and when I want to talk about it. So yeah, Cabaret. If you don't know Cabaret, it is a musical about a bunch of cabaret dancers and a club called the Kit Kat Club. And basically in the show, it details the story of Cliff Bradshaw coming to Germany in the 1930s / early 40s. See what I mean? Stuttering. Cliff comes to Germany, to Berlin, in the late 1930s, early 1940s, during the height of the bad shit in Germany. And the show details how this cabaret club in Germany as a whole is impacted by the Nazi regime, the Nazi party rising to power, Hitler, anti-Semitism, and all the fun stuff. And it is currently running on Broadway and in the West End in the recent revival that I have a lot of thoughts on. But before I get into that, let me detail why I love Cabaret. I love Cabaret because it has, I have an affinity for the 1930s cabaret aesthetic. I don't know why. I've always loved that showgirl aesthetic. Before Taylor Swift announced her new album, I was there from the start, because I'm telling you, after this album comes out, everyone is probably going to be like, "Oh my god, I love showgirls, I love cabaret dancers, I love popping my pussy," you know what I mean? Popping my pussy to rap or something. And I'm just like, I was there first. I was part of the Showgirl Love Club before it was popular. And hopefully with this album, Cabaret might have another resurgence, because we will discover it. But let's talk about why I love it. And why I love Sally Bowles, and why I would die for this girl. I would die for Sally Bowles. She's my BPD queen. She exhibits so much traits of having BPD from everything she does in the show. She, when she's kicked out of living at the Kit Kat Club, she immediately runs to Cliff's apartment and just assumes that he will let her in, which he does. But that kind of thing is something that only people with BPD would do, because and this is something she just met. He goes to the Kit Kat Club the same day he arrives to Germany, gets an apartment, goes to the Kit Kat Club, meets Sally, and I want to say a couple days later, maybe the next day, Sally, bursts in and is wanting to live there. And it's the fact she feels so comfortable doing that is something that only people with BPD would do. Because, she seeks love and validation to a point where it's her detriment. Like, that's why I think Sally became a cabaret dancer in the first place, was we don't get much of her backstory in the text of Cabaret. We don't really, all that we know is that she is from England. She is from England, and she somehow came to Germany and became, like, the head of the Kit Kat Club before she got kicked out. So, we don't know much about Sally until Cliff meets her. We don't know much about this club in the first place. It's very much up to interpretation of how she ended up there. My interpretation is that she was probably a very traumatized person. She was probably, raped or assaulted by either a family member or someone older than her when she was a kid, which led her to want to become like a sex icon, because like throughout this podcast I will definitely overshare about my life, but I've been in the place kind of where Sally Bowles was, kind of, where I felt like sex was like the only way I could get the validation and love that I so desired. So I really relate to Sally in that aspect. But she is definitely one of the type of girls who has never actually felt an ounce of love in her life. Because men are trash. You know what I mean? Like, that is just a fact of the matter, is that she has probably been, like, used and abused and treated like shit. Again, I'm sorry if you hear my dog crying in the background. But basically, she has been, like, she has been this object that is, like, crazy. Wait, one goddamn second. Okay, 1 second. Alright, just had to get the little demon outside of the room so you guys didn't have to hear constant crying in the background. I don't know if you guys heard crying in the background. I won't know that until I edit this shit. But basically, Sally is the antithesis of the archetype of BPD. And do I think that was the implications or the thought put into her character in the 60s? Probably not. Probably not, because that's another thing. My knowledge of Cabaret and my criticisms of Cabaret as a whole is based on the 1999/2014 productions with Alan Cumming as the MC. That is my, favorite production of Cabaret. Well, okay, let's start with context of how I even got into Cabaret in the first place. So, I live in Orlando, in Florida, and there's this theater by me called Orlando Shakes, and they did a production of Cabaret. And I, only knew a little bit of Cabaret, actually, because there was this YouTuber called Musical Hell that would, condemn bad musicals in her, Musical Hell series. And she talked about Cabaret, and I was, very young, and I remember I tried watching it with my mom, and, honestly, this is one of the weird things where you feel like you remember a lot of things, but, you seem to not. Because I remember us turning off the movie when they started talking about who they slept with. There's a scene in the movie, which we'll get into all of that, but there's a scene in the movie in the Cabaret movie, where Sally is talking to Brian, for some fucking reason they named him Brian, and she, is basically, asking him if he's gay. And, my mom, I don't remember how old I was. I want to say, 13 or 14, and we turned it off from that point. So I had never seen the movie. So, finished the movie. So I knew there was Nazi shit. I knew there was anti-Semitic imagery. I knew that going in. I volunteered one night for this show because as a volunteer at Orlando Shakes, you can see the shows usually most of the time for free if you're volunteering. And I was like, oh, I really want to see this show. So I decided to volunteer for the show. I was in the very back row. And when I say that was an emotion, I don't think I have ever had an emotional roller coaster like that in my life. You know what I mean? There was something about the story that, I don't think... See, there's this thing about Cabaret that is what I think is the best part of Cabaret, which is the first viewing. There's a lot of musicals where it's oh... You watch it one time, it's good. You watch it again, it's amazing. You know what I mean? When you're able to sit there and admire everything. And Cabaret, for Cabaret, that's partially true. But the best way to watch Cabaret is for the first time. Go in, completely blind. Because you are just watching this story unfold in like real time in front of you, and you're watching these characters start from super happy to like rock bottom. And there's not, and, you know, like, there's some shows that do that, like Hamilton or Dear Evan Hansen, and those shows, it's like, it's sad, obviously, but it's like sad, like, oh, my friend died, no, oh, my son died, oh, I cheated on someone, oh, I got exposed for being an asshole. But with Cabaret, you're watching these people's entire livelihood shatter. Because at least for Hamilton, like, it ends kind of happy. I mean, like, but with Cabaret, it ends so depressing. There's, like, no good way to view the ending of Cabaret. It is a punch in the gut. And how this production at Orlando Shakes did it was so crazy, because the show starts with a shoe on the middle of the stage. Just like the MC's shoe. And during Welcome, the shoe, you know, goes under the stage. The MC grabs the shoe, then he comes up from under the stage. It is, it's not, you question, like, oh, why is there a shoe there? At the end of the show, when everything goes to shit, because if you don't know how Cabaret ends, which, if you don't know how Cabaret ends, go watch a bootleg, go do something, view this shit for the first time, and then come back. Because spoilers for the show. How it ends, in at least the 90s version, is that it ends with, you know, everything going to shit, and then the MC sings the final notes of the song, and he's wearing a trench coat, which he wears throughout most of the show. In most productions, he's wearing a trench coat for most of the show. And at the very end of the finale, he throws the trench coat off, and he's wearing a Holocaust outfit, the striped pajamas. And you're like, holy fucking shit. And how this production ends is he walks off stage. Cliff is like on the other side of the stage. And a platform comes up. And it's a bunch of shoes stacked upon each other with the MC shoe. And then ash starts falling from the stage. Like, and I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Because, like, the MC fucking dies in the end. But he doesn't just die. He gets, like, annihilated. With a bunch of people in the concentration camp. It is an ending that is sad because of the realness. Because so many Jewish people were killed, and, like, families were traumatized for, like eons, you know what I mean? Like, it was an ending that isn't just sad in the context of the story, it is sad because of how true it is. And then when Cliff gasps at the end in horror, oh my god, I was dead. I died. Like, even in the back row, I was crying. You know what I mean? Like, it was insane. Like, to, like, that kind of gut punch ending, because the show starts super fun with Welcome. It opens with, you know, like, here's a bunch of sluts all dancing for you, and I'm in my skimpy outfit, you know, like, leave your troubles outside, like, it's very fun, and then 2 hours later, they're all fucking dead, you know what I mean? Like, it is truly one of the most devastating fucking stories I have fucking ever seen in musical form. Because in movies, there's a bunch of those where it's like the ending is so fucked. You know what I mean? But, like, it is the way that it switches, but it's not, like, in a bad way, because you might be hearing this and going, like, oh, well, like, how did that work? Like, how does it feel so fluid? Well, it starts joyful because in Germany, it's joyful. You know, there's still political unrest, but you're able to hide in this Kit Kat club and, you know, ignore everything going on the outside of the club. But when you are, and then by the end of the show, you can no longer hide in the club. because it's so fucking real. And then there's, like, the title song, which is Cabaret, which I'm going to have to be giving you so much fucking context if you guys don't know Cabaret, even though if you're listening to this episode, you probably know Cabaret. You probably fucking know Cabaret, so I don't know why I'm giving so much context. But basically, Sally gets pregnant in the middle of Act 1. And, you know, she says that this has happened a lot, you know, unprotected sex, you get pregnant. And she brought up that she usually just goes get an abortion. You know what I mean? And also, what is it with, like, my two favorite music... I made a joke about this recently. Almost all my favorite musicals have to do with, like, Germany or World War II. Because my, like, top 3 favorite shows right now is Cabaret, Alice by Heart, and Spring Awakening. All of those... And 2 of them have abortions. You know what I mean? And, like, all 3 of them have main characters dying. So, I don't know if I just love... And they're all super fucking depressing. I don't know what is with me in these musicals. But, so, she gets pregnant in the middle of Act 1, and she's, like, talking about, you know, doing the normal thing, which is just, you know, going to the doctor, getting an abortion. And then Cliff is like, well, what if it's mine? What if the baby is ours? And what if we can start a new life together with our baby? You know what I mean? It creates this feeling that for Cliff, it's just fun. But for Sally, this is like a whole change in her life. Because we know this because she sings Maybe This Time. Which is a, like, melancholy song about, like, hoping that this time the love she feels will be worth it. That the energy and the passion she's putting into Cliff is he will reciprocate and give her what he needs. Of course, he fucking doesn't. But basically, she's pregnant, and then everything's unfolding. And in Act 2, well, okay, I just need to go through the entire, like, big major points then. In the end of Act 1, there is the person who's renting Cliff the apartment. Her name is Fräulein Schneider. I'm going to butcher so many of these German names. I very much apologize. And she is this, you know, like, fun old woman. And she's in love with this guy named Herr Schultz. He's like a fruit seller. Like a farmer's market type fruit seller. So they have a little side plot. Because Cabaret has a couple like, you know, side shit. There's Cliff and Sally's love story. There's Herr Schultz and Fräulein Schneider's love, and then there's the MC doing whatever the fuck he wants in between everything. So there's a lot happening. But so during Act 1, they sing a song called Married. And basically they decide to get married because they love each other so much, because they've known each other for fucking years. And at their party, there's this guy named Herr Ludwig, and basically he was introduced that when we met Cliff on the train to Germany. He sent Cliff to Paris to get some stuff for him, like smuggle some stuff in from Paris, and he would pay him a shit ton of money. Which he does. He brings him the briefcase. Herr Ludwig gives Cliff a bunch of money, and then he is like at this party. And he's like, oh, let me take my coat off. Takes his coat off. He has a swastika on his arm. And, like, there is this pause, and some productions don't do the pause right, which fucking annoys me. But there's this pause where Cliff grabs his arm, looks at it, looks back at him, and it's like, the audience is like, holy shit, what is happening? Like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's hints of Hitler and the Nazis throughout Act 1. And let me preface this. Act 1 is fucking long. Act 1 is probably most of the story. I don't know exactly, but it's longer than most Act 1s. Because usually Act 1 is shorter, Act 2 is longer. It's the opposite in Cabaret. Act 1 is like over an hour. And then Act 2 is like under, I think maybe an hour, maybe a little bit under. So, Act 1 is building so much stuff up to this moment. Where, like, they send you, and they put you in this false sense of security with this story, and then they say, gotcha, bitch. You know what I mean? Like, they throw this at you. And you're like, what? Huh? Like, it is one of these moments. And everyone in the cast is like, what? Like, it's one of those moments where, like, for Cliff, he knows what that means. But everyone around him doesn't fully understand. Because it's said early in the story that he was reading Hitler's book, which I cannot for the life of me remember the name of. He's reading, it's said in passing between Cliff and Sally. I forget which scene. I think it's maybe Perfectly Marvelous, I want to say. I could be wrong. But it is hinted at. So you kind of get that little nugget in your brain. Not even. It's like mentioned so fast that like if you know, you know. You're like, oh, they're talking about Hitler's book, whatever. And then he takes the jacket off, and Cliff, who knows what that symbol means, knows the ideologies of Hitler, looks him dead in the eyes and goes like, is this the party or something? I don't remember exactly what he says. But he says, is this the good cause? It is. And then Herr Ludwig says, it's the new Germany or something. And you're like, oh God. And then basically there's this random whore. I call her the random whore because she's kind of just there. I don't know if she works at the club. I don't know if she's just a prostitute. She's fucking sailors. I don't know what's her deal. Her name was Fräulein Kost. I don't know what the fuck she's doing here. Anyway, Fräulein Kost is there for some reason. And she starts dancing with Herr Ludwig. And he's like, oh, this is such a great party. And then Fräulein Kost is like, well, I mean, like, yeah, Herr Schultz has a lot of money. And he goes, what do you mean? She goes, you know, those Jews. And you're like, oh, what? And then Herr Ludwig goes up to Fräulein Schneider and is like, and some versions do this amazingly. I actually, as much as I dislike the new production that's currently on Broadway in the West End, I like how they do this scene, that just this one moment where he's telling Fräulein Schneider, like, you're making a mistake. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, he's not a German. And then she's like, but he was born here. And he goes, he is not a German. And the new production, he, like, points at her. Like, angry, like, ugh. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. And then you think it stops there. No. He tries to leave. Fräulein Kost then is like, Herr Ludwig, you're not leaving so early. And then they start singing Tomorrow Belongs to Me reprise, which is a reprise of a song that was just kind of put in the middle of Act 1. And they're singing, and then the whole crowd, the whole, choir joins them, and except for Sally, Cliff, Herr Schultz, and Fräulein Schneider. They're everyone else is singing. And they're singing, and at the very, tip of the song, they raise their arms to do the Nazi salute, and then it goes to black. And you're like, what? So, when I would volunteer at this theater that did Cabaret, I want to say we had, 10 people leave during Act 1. In between Act 1 and Act 2. And most of the time, when I was doing the shows, people would come out of Act 1, and it would just be dead fucking silent. No one... Everyone was in shock. People were like, what? It is one of those moments where you're just you're at a loss for words, because the show has just done a full 360 on its tone. And then we open with Act 2, which starts with a kick line. And it's a fun kick line, and then they do the Nazi salute. And you're like, oh, well, fuck. Okay, anyway. So then we go into the next scene where Sally is telling Cliff that she has gotten a spot back at the Kit Kat Club. They brought it. They want to bring it back, and Cliff is telling her that he just needs to read it. That he needs to sit down and read her newspaper, and so she knows what's going on. And she goes, "Ugh, you mean politics? What does that got to do with us?" And that's the biggest line of the show is politics. What does that have to do with us? So put a pin in that. Then they start fighting, and then Fräulein Schneider comes in, and she gives back this fruit bowl that Sally gave her at the party, And she sings this song called If You Were Me. It's after Cliff says that she shouldn't give up that easily. And basically the song is her telling them that... No, it's called What Would You Do? During What Would You Do, she's singing about how they are so young and they don't really have like a stamp in Germany or in Berlin, and they can just go wherever the fuck they want when they want to. She basically says that she's running a big business here. She's been running it for years. She has to follow the values of the Nazi Party to keep afloat, because her entire life is in these apartments. She's not just a landlord. She loves this building. She loves renting these rooms. This is her passion. And if she were to marry Herr Schultz, they, and the Nazi Party came to power, they could take away her right to rent rooms. So she would lose everything. So she has to call off the engagement to... I forgot to mention. And in between this scene and the kick line, there's married reprise, which is where Fräulein Schneider comes in and basically tells Herr Schultz that they can't get married. And he sings a reprise of Married. The MC walks on stage, and then the MC throws a brick. Or, doesn't throw it, it depends on the production. But a brick is thrown, like, in the story, and, like, breaks the window. And in some productions, it'll say many things. It'll say, like, a Jewish slur. It'll have, like, the Star of David. It might have a Nazi symbol. Like, it depends on the production. But basically, it is a hate crime. It's someone vandalizing the store because they now know that Herr Schultz is Jewish. And then that leads to the next scene where she basically says, like, this is real. This is actually happening. Like, there is, my lover's store just got vandalized because he's Jewish. Like, this is not politics anymore. This is what's happening. That even if the Nazi Party may not rise to power, it appears that everyone wants them to. So it's kind of a done deal for her. And she basically says that since they don't have a life like her in Berlin, they can just go to Paris or go to England or go back to America or whatever, and they don't really have a reason to stay. She needs to. This is where she lives. Her entire life is here. And it's this really like awakening moment for the audience and the characters that we can all sit here and say, if we were in the Holocaust, if we were in Germany during the Holocaust, we would have been that's what people always say. It's like I would have stopped if I was on the airplane for 9/11, I would have overpowered the terrorists. You know what I mean? It's that kind of philosophy of, if I was there, I would be hiding Jews in my basement. I would be, like, protesting and all this stuff. And the show basically says, no, you fucking wouldn't. You'd be shot on sight. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I love about this in like, Jojo Rabbit, where when there's a scene in Jojo Rabbit where it has a similar thing to Cabaret, where it is a kind of uplifting show about, like, a really dark subject, and then it smacks you. And then Jojo Rabbit, there's a scene where he's walking past the hanging, like, posts of people hanging, which his mom showed him earlier. He's walking, he sees his mom's shoes. We don't see her body. All we see is her shoes. And that's all we need to hear. It shows that people who tried died. And Cabaret also tells you that you wouldn't even think about doing it because you would have fallen for the propaganda. Because there is a scene I forget the timeline. Okay, in between this scene and the fruit shop scene, oh my god, I forgot to mention the most important fucking number in this show. There is, if you could see her, which is a number by the MC, and he's singing about a gorilla he's in love with. And the whole point of the scene is that the audience is laughing along. Because it's funny that this guy is dancing with an ape just as a woman. He's singing the song. And there's obviously underlying messages in the song about how when people see her, when he walk with her, they sneer and stuff like that. But you go, oh, well, it's a monkey. Of course people think it's fucking weird. Or an ape. Of course it's fucking weird. And then at the very end of the song, the last couple lines of the song are, if you could see her through my eyes, she wouldn't look Jewish at all. This is such an important scene because it shows you that you would have fallen for the propaganda because you just fucking did. You just witnessed anti-Semitic propaganda and you fell for it. Because back then, the propaganda wasn't saying, kill the Jews. It was subtle hints about saving Germany, fixing Germany, and it was all manipulation and stuff like that. And obviously, that's kind of what's going on right now in America, but I'll get to that in a minute. But, not a minute, but towards the end of the episode. But basically, it shows you that the show is telling you, you wouldn't be this savior. You would have fallen for the propaganda and you would have been too scared to go against it. You would have been brainwashed. It is, not amazing, but it is like such good staging and storytelling, basically saying a fuck you to the audience. Because this show is, most productions of this show, it's painted as it's being done for you. And the original, this is good. This goes back to the original production on Broadway back in the 60s. When you would walk into to my knowledge, I haven't done much research, probably should have done more research on this, but apparently when you would walk into the theater in the 60s to see Cabaret, there would be a giant mirror on stage. So you would look at yourself, and then I'm pretty sure that the mirror would be hidden, and then it would come back on stage at the end. So, in most productions of the show, this is what's funny, but actually, we'll can this. Most of the shows are done immersively. In the 90s version and the 2014 version, they redid the theaters and had you, sit closer to the stage to create this immersion. Because Cabaret is you're watching a story being told to you, kind of like Hades Town. The MC is kind of like Hades. Hermes. You're being talked to as an audience. He's interacting with the audience. He's looking at you, talking to you, acting towards you. And any of those numbers, most of the big numbers in the show are out of universe. But in universe, it's happening. So, it's such expertly done. And then you have the scene, and then after Fräulein Schneider's song, Cliff and Sally get another fight. They start talking about how she needs to go back to the club. What do we get for the baby? She just needs the money. And then he's like, nah, bitch, you're going to follow in the club if you do that. And she goes, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're coming to America with me. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, we're leaving Berlin. And then she goes, this is also a big scene where she goes, but we love it here. And he goes, Sally, wake up. The party in Berlin is over. It was a fun while it lasted, but it's over. It's going to get a lot worse. It's showing that Cliff understands what's happening in Germany. He's only been in Germany for a couple of months and he already wants to leave because he knows what the fuck is going on. But Sally is kind of in Fräulein Schneider's place, but for a whole different reason. She's falling for, Fräulein Schneider is, giving into the Nazi-ness, the Nazi propaganda, the Nazi regime, because she has to keep her company afloat. Sally isn't giving in to either perspective. She's trying to live in a blissful world. She is trying to pretend that nothing is happening, that we can all just, kick line and everything will be fine. But Cliff is trying to communicate to her that that's just not true. That we cannot live in this state of denial because it's not what's going on. So she goes, so then we get, if we go, I don't care much, which is the MC's big number. I mean, like, obviously, it's a pivotal number. The MC finally has more character than he did in the rest of the show, but it's kind of a number that's honestly meant as a background number for the next scene, where we see Sally at the Kit Kat Club talking to either Max or someone else, and Cliff runs in, and he's like, what the hell are you doing? And she's like, she says, like, this is sure, you know what I mean? And then he goes, what is this? What the hell is this you keep talking about as if this was something real? And when are you going to admit to yourself that the only reason you got this job, any job, is by fucking someone? And I fucking hate when productions say sleeping with someone. You have to say fuck someone. It is such... This is the first time that we've heard, like, a true swear, honestly, in the entire show. There's, like... I can't really think of a moment where they swear a lot in the show. Like, this is Cliff in rock bottom. He is angry, and he is a hyper-masculine bitch about it. You know what I mean? Like, he is telling Sally how it fucking is. He is telling Sally that she needs to come to the grip with the fact that she is nothing but a pussy to these people. She's nothing but tits and pussy. So then Sally sings the title number, Cabaret. And and there's so many interpretations of this number. So fucking many. And basically she starts singing about how there was... How come to the cabaret all the time. It starts out like a standard cabaret-like song. Like come to the cabaret. And then she breaks character by talking about this girl that was kind of mentioned earlier in the show named Elsie. She goes, and I quote, I used to have a girlfriend known as Elsie, with whom I shared 4 sordid rooms in Chelsea. She wasn't what you'd call a blushing flower. As a matter of fact, she rented by the hour. The day she died, the neighbors came to snicker. Well, that's what comes from too much pills and liquor. But when I saw her laid out like a queen, she was the happiest corpse I ever seen. I think of Elsie to this very day. I remember how she would turn to me and say, and then she re-sings the beginning of the song. But it's a whole new context where she is no longer singing this mindless song. It has feeling now. And then she sings put down the knitting, the book, and the broom, all that stuff. And then she says, as for me, I made my mind up back in Chelsea. When I go, I'm going like Elsie. And then she breaks the fuck down. She starts screaming. She's like, start by! You know what I mean? Like crazy. Like she is losing her mind. She's having a full emotional breakdown. And my favorite version of the show is when singers drop the good singing and they just start fucking screaming. You know what I mean? Because Sally, in my opinion, this number should never be pretty. It should never be pretty. This is Sally having a full mental fucking breakdown. But she's not having a breakdown to the audience in her universe. She's having a breakdown to us. She is basically saying, come to this cabaret, you fucking idiots. You know what I mean? Like, it is a in-the-universe taunt towards the audience, saying, basically, you've watched shit happen. Song ends. Crowd erupts. It's amazing, you know what I mean? But there's no cheering. It's just applause. Because you're like, why should I cheer for this bitch losing her mind? Anyway, so next scene is Schultz comes back and basically is saying he's leaving. No, he's wishing Cliff good life, because Cliff is now leaving. He's packed, he's leaving. Sally walks in, disheveled as fuck, and he is, like, telling her, like, I got your stuff packed, whatever, and then he says, like, oh, so Cliff got beat up after he tells Sally to, like, fuck off, basically. Basically, I keep forgetting everything. Harriet Ludwig comes into the Kit Kat Club, and is asking Cliff to do more smuggling for him. Cliff basically calls him, tells him to go to hell, and he's like, and then Head Ludwig says, "Is this about the Jew at the party?" And then Cliff tries to beat the shit out of him. And then Cliff gets beat the shit out of. It's this, not graphic, because, you know, it's on stage, but basically he's beat the fuck out of, and it's more disturbing. It's disturbing, and then we see the aftermath. Cliff is has a black eye. He's like a cast. He's like, you know, fucked up, and basically he is like, he's ready to go now. So Sally walks in and he's talking to her, and he's like, well, I'm sorry about the last few nights. Sorry I got beat up. He goes to touch her, and he realizes she's super cold. She hadn't come home that night, so she's cold. And then he asks her where her coat is. She says, I left it at the doctor's office. This line is crazy, because if you can't pick up on it, Sally got an abortion. She was so angry with Cliff that she got an abortion. And there's a lot to talk about of why she got this abortion. The first thought you might have is that she did it as revenge. But I don't believe that that's why she got the abortion. I believe she got the abortion because she felt that her and Cliff could no longer have a connection. That their connection was gone. And that the baby doesn't deserve to come into this world. I also think that's one of the biggest reasons, is when Sally truly realized what was going on, she did not want to have a kid. She did not want to bring that child into this world. Because, for all she knows, the Nazis will stay in power forever. She doesn't know, but now she's willing to admit it. And, can you blame her? I mean, like, there's a lot of talk about people not wanting to bring their children into America right now. Think about when you are in the middle of a full-on genocidal regime. And I wouldn't want to bring my fucking baby into that. Anyway, so she's telling Cliff this, and basically says, like, that she thinks he would have been a really good father, and that her other regret is that the great doctor, I'm going to miss my fur coat. Implied that the doctor probably raped her before they had the abortion. So add insult to injury. And then to add more insult to injury, Cliff slaps the shit out of her. This man fucking hits her. And it's not like, in most productions, it depends. Some productions, she fucking falls. I love that. I mean, I don't love that, but I love that staging. He smacks her with all his fucking power and rage. And then Sally has a BPD breakdown. And she basically says, like, that it always ends this way. That when she thinks she has something good, she spoils it. She runs off with the first good thing that comes to her. And that he probably would too. And he's like, no, I wouldn't. No, there was a baby. And she's like, to hold us together, you mean? Oh, Cliff, what a terrible burden for an infant. And then he's like, we're leaving. And then he realizes she's not going to go with him. So he says to her that he'll be at the train station till Friday waiting for her. And tries to give her a ticket. She won't take it. And she says, you know what, Cliff? I've always rather hated Paris. Implying there's more to be said. But he basically then says goodbye. And as he's leaving, she says, Cliff, dedicate your book to me, because Cliff came to Germany to write a book. And that's Sally's final line in the show, is dedicate your book to me. Because Sally knows there's nothing else for her anymore. And we don't see what happens to Sally after the story. We don't see what happens to Cliff after the story. Because the last time we see Cliff, like fully Cliff, is the beginning of the finale when he's on the train to Paris. And the train conductor that we saw at the beginning of the show comes back out and signs his papers. And he says, I hope you've enjoyed your stay in Germany, Mr. Bradshaw, and then you'll return again soon. And then Cliff says, it's not very likely. I'm getting emotional thinking about this. Jesus Christ. And then the train conductor, the train person goes, did you not find our country beautiful? And then Cliff turns to him and goes, yes, I found it beautiful. And I fucking died! Oh my god. Like, Cliff! Cliff loved Sally so fucking much. Like, because Sally, to Sally, he was his first love. To Cliff, she was his first love. Like, it is so fucking tragic. And then it gets worse. He says there was a cabaret. There was a master of ceremonies. There was in a city called Berlin, in a country called Germany, was the end of the world. The music starts. He then goes, I was dancing with Sally Bowles. And we were both fast asleep. Now, I don't fully know what we were both fast asleep means. Does it mean they were dreaming? Were they dead? I don't know. But, actually, now that I think about it, I think I was dancing with Sally Bowles and we were both fast asleep. That might actually mean that they were, like, asleep to the fact of what was going on at the time. And then he fucking starts singing the opening number. He's singing Welcome. And, mind you, I'm in the audience right now. Tears are running down my face. I'm shaking. I think my hand was over my mouth in shock since, like, the last scene. Like, I am fucked. And then he goes off stage and the MC is in his trench coat. And he sings, where are your troubles now? Forgotten, I told you so. And he repeats a part of Welcome. And then the music starts playing, and it gets super creepy and distorted. And now I'm going to tell you how they did that Shakes, because fucking hell. And so during this scene in Shakes, during the musical part in between the reveal and the MC saying even the orchestra was beautiful, almost every ensemble member walked, because how the stage was laid out there was an entrance in the back, there was a small staircase, there was a walkway, a drop, and then the stage. And then on the sides of this tiny walkway was the band. So the band was actually on stage. And basically what happened was they all walk down and they all get their, like, tags. They're all getting, I don't exactly know, I think they're getting on the train, I don't know exactly where they're going. They're going somewhere. They all get, like, the safe tags. Herr Schultz walks with the group and he gets the fucking Star of David. So now they added the texture of Herr Schultz fucking dying in the Holocaust. And then the MC rips off his trench coat, and then the shoes come up, and everyone's fucking dead. And I'm like, ugh. When I tell you that bow, you gotta give the actors their claps. Dead fucking silent. They walk out. When I saw this night, they didn't clap for the first 5 seconds. And then they clapped so fucking quietly. I don't even remember if the ensemble bowed. I think they just fucking stood there and then walked off stage. And I was just like, I remember walking out. I'm volunteering, by the way. I want to make that known. I have to walk out and tell people goodnight, and my fucking face is wet. My face is a fucking ocean. I am, like, glistening with sweat and tears and all that shit, and I'm being like, have a good night, and I'm looking like I just had a fucking panic attack. It was so weird. Like, whoa, my God. And then I went back and saw it, like, 10 other times. But there's something about Cabaret where it's, like, torture porn. Like, you're torturing yourself. And then one time they had, like, these seats right by the stage. I sat in one of those. I was not ready. during the Cabaret number, they had people dressed as Nazis sit in the chairs right next to me. There was a Nazi right next to me. I wanted to punch this guy even though I knew he was an actor. You know what I mean? The emotion you felt with Sally looking at the person right next to you and they don't give a shit because they're a Nazi. Girl. Anyway, so, amazing show. It is done so well. And now let's talk about the shit in the productions I fucking hate. And that is the new Broadway production. We will get to Billy Porter. But let's start with the undermining of Nazis. Mind you, I didn't finish that bootleg. I will probably post in the comments my thoughts while finishing it. I got up until, I want to say, the scene where they're fighting before she goes to the club, because I was like, this is so weird. Cara Delevingne could not fix this. Cara Delevingne could not salvage this horrible staging. So, the show was big red flag, the costumes. It is so vaudeville carnival, and we are in a strip club. And at first, you're like, oh, it's a little bit mean. And then for Don't Tell Mama, Sally Bowles comes out of the ground, and she's wearing a fucking baby costume. She has a baby bonnet on her head. And there is the recording I saw of Cara Delevingne, she made something so uncomfortable, less uncomfortable, but I love Eva Noah Mazzotta, I would die for that bitch, but they told her to suck on her thumb while she's talking about fucking people, oh my god. Anyway, and then the entire ensemble puts on baby bonnets. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Okay, and you guys are gonna have to humor me, I'm gonna have to hold your hands through this. Tomorrow Belongs to Me reprise. Starts out super great. You know, like the stage is in the round, platforms going up and down, and they're singing the your children have waited to see. And all the ensemble is standing around a platform that's risen, and there is if I remember how it looked, there was Herr Schultz and Florian Schneider on one layer, Cliff and Sally on the next layer, and then at the top layer was the MC orchestrating everything. Perfect staging. They reached the end. They don't do the Nazi salute. And before y'all fucking cancel me for being mad that people didn't do an anti-Semitic arm movement, I am pissed. I am peeved. You know what I mean? Like, I never thought in my days of living I would be so bad that people did not do a Nazi salute. But they didn't. And I swear to God, if y'all clip this shit out of context, I swear to God. No. That salute is so powerful. Because you did everything else. You had the he has money, he's a Jew. You had the he's not the German. You had the Nazi thing, the swastika on the arm. You had all of that, and then you fumbled at the final fucking step because you've already crossed your threshold into uncomfortable and offensive. Like, I've heard people say in my circle, "Oh, they didn't want to do it because it's super offensive." You did everything else. You showed the symbol, you said that the Jews have all the money, and then you said that Jews aren't citizens. You did everything. And then you fumbled at the final second. I think, and this whole production is so weird, because, like, it doesn't have the 1990 ending. I already know that. It doesn't have the 90s ending. I've heard it just ends. Like kind of the movie did. Which we will talk about that fucking movie in a second. But this production they were so, I think they spent all the budget on the immersion and nothing else. Because the costumes are whack, sometimes the acting is awful, Billy Porter, and the when you have to do the big movement, the big shit, what makes Cabaret is not strippers dancing, it is politics. That is why Cabaret was written. And the censorship of Cabaret goes back to the original Broadway production, where they didn't even say Jew in the 60s production. They said Miskite. What the fuck does Miskite mean? I'll tell you what it means. Miskite means, like, weird and unusual. And that was supposed to be an implication. I don't know the context. Maybe it made sense in the show, in the production. There is no actual recording of the original production. There might be. Just haven't seen it. But censorship in Cabaret goes back to the very beginning of the show. In the 60s, it makes a little more sense. I mean, like, the Nazi regime happened, 30, 20 years ago? It's still fresh. We are in 2020, at the time, 2021. We are almost 100 years from when it happened. And now, am I saying it's not offensive? No, it's still very much offensive. But if you look at how anti-Semitic shit is so normalized and remember when Elmo was kill all the Jews, and now his entire Twitter, there's a Jewish Elmo Twitter account. There is people are so unfazed. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the fucking weirdos who think that George Floyd dying is funny. But as a culture, we are comfortable with being uncomfortable because it's history. But this production also infuriates me because it's talking about how it's so important to do Cabaret, which it is, but go all the way through. Now, is this production fully damned? No. I think that the In the Round is really cool. I think that Orville Peck and Eva Novazada can kick fucking ass. I think that the show, there are some costume decisions I think are super funny, super well done. There's a lot of good stuff in the first act. It's the second act where it fucking fumbles. You know what I mean? Because, yeah, she's singing Cabaret. Yeah, Cara Delevingne did a bit. I'm talking about the bootleg I saw. Cara Delevingne does a great job. Yes, but it doesn't feel... So, okay, humor me. Do y'all remember Be More Chill? I fucking do. My Playbill stack remembers Be More Chill. My Tumblr remembers Be More Chill. But, basically, Be More Chill, when it first premiered at Two River Theater in 2015, was more serious, like the book. It was more serious and less goofy. So, when you have Michael in the bathroom, it made you sad. It made you oh, bullshit. You know what I mean? It's definitely not on the same level as anti-Semitic Nazi genocide. The twinks crying in the bathroom, but you kind of get the idea of what I'm saying if you actually understand what I'm saying, which is that it's about tone, because when they did it on Broadway, the whole show's goofy, so when all of a sudden we're sad, you're like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? It's all about tone. Cabaret needs that stark switch. It never really happened. I mean, on paper it did, but we as the audience don't feel super, upset. But again, maybe it hits so much different in person. Maybe the immersion hits so much different. Because I'm talking about this as someone who just, sitting outside the theater in my living room. You know what I mean? I don't truly understand as I said earlier, watching it is different than viewing it on a phone or on TV, but from how it seems and from what I've heard, I'm able to criticize the fact that as an audience member watching it, a bootleg, because I've watched many bootlegs where I felt the emotion I was supposed to feel. Maybe not as intense, but, when I first watched Spring Awakening, Alice by Heart, I felt the impact because it was well done. But in this Cabaret production, it just feels like it was an afterthought. And That confuses me. And now Billy Porter. Fucking hell, bitch. Okay. Let's talk about what's definitively wrong with Billy Porter's performance. Because I've heard so many bad takes that were racist and stupid about Billy Porter. But let me state why I think is the nail in the coffin of what the actual problem with the performance. Because we have heard him sing this professionally and on bootlegs on TikTok. We know how he sounds. On key, that's up to interpretation. You need to know when you don't really know someone like he to fucking hear in a good recording. But he's like, if you kiss me, like girl, he sounds like he is trying to fuck. Like, I don't even know what he's trying to do here. I think he's trying to be Alphaba. Like, I think he heard Defying Gravity, like the battle cry Defying Gravity, and said, what if I just sing like that the entire fucking show? But, like, not the note, the sound. Because like, there's not a night of him going, you give me beef, that's just bad. It sounds bad, it's ridiculous, it's stupid, and I don't know. He is just the nail in the coffin of this weird fucking production. Anyway, now the movie. Let's talk about my love-hate relationship with the movie. I watched the movie the first time a couple months ago. I actually recorded my entire live reaction. I may upload that. We'll see. But at first, I was like, first off, the choreography's fucking weird. Like, during Money, during My Hair, it's fucking weird. And it sucks that chair choreography is like it's what My Hair is known for is the chair choreography. But it's so fucking weird. Like, but not weird as in like an otherworldly weird, because the Kit Club in the movies is supposed to be like a kind of out of universe being. It's not supposed to be in the universe. Which then you could argue, it kind of is. See, this is the problem with the movie. It just picks and chooses when the Kit Club is real and when it's not. Because, like, they're like, well, Cliff's in here, then it's real. But even when Cliff's in there, it doesn't look real. Like, when, the boxing match scene, which, what the fuck was that? But, basically the boxing match scene, like, there's more, when that boxing ring was brought on, there's, like, not that much mud there. But then by the end of the scene that Cliff is watching, those bitches are covered in mud. They carried in that mud. Like, Carrie White in that mud. Like, and it's hard to know what's going on. Not Cliff, sorry, Brian. Why the fuck did you name him Brian? Was Cliff not white male enough? I'm yelling so much I gotta exfoliate my lungs with water. But, not exfoliate, fuck, I don't know the words. Anyway, Brian is, it's an okay character. I like the reinterpretation of Cliff of him being just, like, he's, like, gay until he's bi, and then he's back to gay. And I'm like, well, because you're talking about not sleeping with women, but then you marry and fuck Sally, and then, because here's the here's the thing. In the original source material, Cliff is very loyal to Sally. And so is Sally to some extent. But Cliff is married to Sally still, technically. She's about to have a baby. He just fucks this random guy that he, like, hated. Which I knew they were gonna fuck. I'm sorry. They were going to fuck. There's no way that Cliff... Because Cliff wasn't jealous of Sally. He was fucking Sally. He wasn't getting that millionaire dick. That's what he was mad about. But, like... Sorry, I keep saying Cliff. We're just gonna call him Cliff. Fuck the name Brian. We're calling him Cliff. So Cliff is, in this movie, he is, 1, handsome. 2, weird. Like, he is so hard to understand his character. Because he's mad that Sally got an abortion, but he's, like, fucking everything with a pulse. He's weird. And I'm sorry, older gays come for me. Liza Minnelli is not a good Sally. She might be a good actress. She's funny. She ain't fucking Sally. She plays Sally up to be this, like, quirky, weird girl. That's not who Sally is. Sally is a deranged, fucked-in-the-head girl, and Liza plays her as if she is this, like, Tumblr girl, basically. This was the 70s, so obviously Tumblr didn't exist. But she acts like a pick-me all the fucking time. Like, she is so annoying throughout that film. She is just fucking rude to everyone. She's stupid. She's like, her ignorance is like it's to a point of like, how is she ignorant? She doesn't see anything. Anyway, her and Cliff's relationship is kind of fun. I wish they were just gay best friends, because if you're gonna rewrite, by the way, this movie rewrote the entire fucking story. The plot is completely different. It ends not even the same. It ends with Cliff leaving for America, but they're, like, good about it. Sally's like, okay, girl, go to America. Like, no, he's not even from America. Where's he from? He's not even American. It's Sally who's American. I forgot to mention that. Cliff is, like, English. Which makes you question, what the fuck did you go to Germany? Anyway. And then they introduce this other guy who has probably the strongest change in the plot, where he starts out seemingly anti-Semitic. In the beginning, he says, like, oh, she's Jewish, she must be ugly, and this fucking beautiful bitch walks in. But by the end of the movie, it's revealed he's Jewish. And the only reason he's pretending not to be is so that he doesn't get put in the hall in a concentration camp. That is great. That is, like, it is a interesting addition to this new character. Also, Cliff goes from, oh, I don't want the cigarette, to smoking so many fucking cigarettes, that bitch has cancer, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, Sally. I'm probably getting flagged by YouTube for saying this. I'm sorry Sally didn't call him a faggot. I was so shocked she didn't. Anyway. So, basically, to sum this, like, entire episode up, is that, oh, fuck, I can't sum the episode, I didn't talk about the MC. I didn't talk about the MC yet. So, the MC is very much a interesting character, because he is basically, in most productions, he represents Germany. Like, when he falls, he's the fall of Germany. But Alan Cummings' portrayal portrayed him more as this otherworldly kind of being who flip-flops in and out of the universe. But he never fully interacts with the characters. To my knowledge, they never interact with him. Like, he's there. He's like this otherworldly being, in a way. He knows what's gonna happen. Most of the time, he's causing what's gonna happen. He's, like, such an interesting character to do, because he's one of those characters where you could do him a million different ways. You could have him be super straight looking. You could do full, like, male lingerie, super twinkish, you know what I mean? Like, he is such a versatile character, because the MC because on paper, the MC just sings some songs, and then, dies, you know what I mean? Or doesn't die, just leaves, you know what I mean? Like, he's not, like, he doesn't have concrete character. He's very much up to interpretation, which is why anyone producing Cabaret, hit me up. I can sing, kind of. I'm also gay, so, like, representation. But, yeah, put me as the MC, please. Or put me as Sally. If you want to be fun, do me as Sally. I want to be Sally. I want to drag. Anyway, so, that is the first episode of Screaming Into the Void. Basically, this series is going to be every time I post an episode. We might start a weekly schedule if this takes off, but for now, each episode is probably going to be either a topic or just me talking. There might be the chance of me having, like, a co-person on some episodes and some not. I want it to be one of those podcasts where it's screaming into the void, can be whatever the fuck you want, because the void is up to you. You know what I mean? And that's the tagline of this podcast, actually, is screaming into the void. Tagline, the void can be whatever the fuck you want it to be, or be whatever you want it to be. I haven't decided fully yet. But anyway, thank you for tuning in to the first episode of Screaming into the Void. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you are interested in learning more about Cabaret, I would probably say watch a recording on the internet, find a bootleg, go on Reddit, get bootlegs. This is where you'll mostly get your bootlegs. If you want one of the new production, email me. My business email will probably be in the description. Probably not, but might be. I don't know. We'll see what I do. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of Screaming into the Void. This is Lilith, and I am ready to go watch Sound of Music with my mom. Anyway, bye!